Please listen carefully.
Hello, I'm Tamara Best. Welcome to my podcast, Listen to Your Body, Heal Your Life. Today is episode 5, and I'm going to recap my 30-day supplement challenge. I'm also going to tell you what my new challenge is going to be. And as well, I'm going to follow up with part 2 of my review of Dr. Kelly Brogan's book, A Mind of Your Own. The truth about depression and how women can heal their bodies to reclaim their lives. The first thing I want to do, though, before I get into all of that is remind you that if you'd like to get these podcast episodes into your email inbox, and if you'd like to get other information from my podcast, such as to get a heads up for when my 30-day challenge journal and course will be available, then head on over to listentoyourbodyhealyourlife.com and look for the subscribe page where you will find the locations where you can find my podcast. It's in other places right now, but the only 2 places that I have listed are iTunes and Google Play Music, because Stitcher and some of the other ones that I've put it on don't seem to be free ways for you to find my podcast. So I haven't finished setting those up on the website yet, but you'll find there when you go to listentoyourbodyhealyourlife.com, you'll find a form on the subscribe page where you can sign up for email notifications. I promise not to spam you. I just want to keep you involved and let you know when the new episodes come out, as well as let you know when I have things on the horizon that are exciting that you might want to take part in. Also, for any episodes on this show, if you want to get your hands on the books or the resources that I use, so for example, I talk about in episode 1 my magnesium supplementation journey and my mineral supplementation journey. I have an Amazon affiliate account, and so if you enjoy this podcast and you want to look into the resources that I suggest or the books that I review, I would request that. To support me, you just go on over to my resources page and find the episode you're looking for. Click on the resources that you're looking for specifically from whatever podcast episode it is that you've just listened to, and use my Amazon affiliate link. Yes, I will get a little kickback, but I'll accept your participation as a thank you for the work that I'm doing to get all of this information to you and in your hands. Also, I have a Patreon page, so you can look for a link to that on the subscribe page of the podcast website as well when you go to listentoyourbodyhealyourlife.com. So let me just start with my 30-day supplementation challenge recap. It's been a really interesting 30 days. I'll tell you, at the beginning of my challenge, I had already been on magnesium. I started magnesium May the 18th. And when I did that, I was overwhelmed. I often felt stuck. It wasn't really depressed, but I didn't really feel like I had enough energy. I felt a lot of fatigue. I really did. I think I've talked about this on earlier episodes where I didn't think I had enough energy to be able to really activate and bring my life vision to fruition at the very beginning. So I started magnesium May 18th, and it was the middle of June when I actually started this 30-day supplementation challenge. So by the time that I started my supplementation challenge, I had already really cured insomnia and leg cramps, but there were a lot of things going on for me physically. And I remember the very beginning of the 30-day challenge was also when I was discovering things, when I was researching the first episode and realizing the connection to asthma and the connection to insomnia and the problems that the medications that I was taking was causing. When medications up until that time, I had thought that they were supposed to help you and make you feel better, but the things I was discovering and the things that I understood from living in my body was just making me really upset. And that's how I started the 30-day supplementation challenge. So during that time, I experimented with dosage. I started watching my symptoms. And during the course of the 30-day challenge, I really did accomplish quite a reduction of symptoms. And I shifted, so I started to reduce or even discontinue some of my medication. My podcast is not a substitution for medical advice. I'm not a doctor, and also it's not a substitute for mental health care. So I would really recommend that you find a therapist if you need one, because this isn't treatment. And also, if you really think that supplementation will help you, as I found that it helped me, then I would recommend that you don't take yourself off of medication unless you have a health practitioner helping you do that. Now, I'm beginning to have less and less faith and trust in traditional medical doctors, but there are functional medicine doctors that really do look at what is the root cause. And they're much more likely to help you feel better without resorting to medication. I would recommend that you search for a functional medicine doctor in your area. They're always just as far away as a Google search. So other accomplishments in my 30 days is that I stopped my habit of coffee. And last week, I experienced a shift in my eating. I really did. I think I talked in episode 4 about really kind of getting mad at this idea that I should still be treating my body in a way that was different from what my body told me. So, for example, I was still eating sugar and flour or thinking about those addictive foods and craving those addictive foods in spite of knowing that they weren't so good for me. And so last week I was able to shift in my eating, and I was able to just kind of, once I got angry that I was caught in this perpetual loop, I was able to resist the temptation to go and follow a craving for temporary satisfaction of whatever the emotional need was that was driving this craving. So yes, sugar and flour can be addictive foods. They're actually formulated to make us want more of them, but there's also an emotional component to that. So I discovered that this week too during my 30-day challenge, and I'll tell you about that in a few minutes. But I also had some other insights, like the insight where I shifted. I shared last week about hearing Dr. Carolyn Dean's radio show where she says that we're on our own, and how upset that made me. And I think that I went from being really mad that nobody would help me to feeling empowered that I could actually learn how to do this on my own and take care of myself and my body without interference from doctors who really don't have my best interest in mind. I also learned in my 30-day challenge that I just don't do well eating sugar, refined sugar, or flour, or dairy, with or without supplements. So when I start doing something that I think is going to benefit my health, there's this little monster that creeps in and whispers to me, now that you're taking supplements, you can eat whatever the heck you want. And it's not true. I can't. I have to really follow what my body wants. And there was further shifts for me this week when I realized that really eating those ways, eating crappy food, eating things that I know will harm me, it's like eating poison. And so I just really feel like I have come full circle on that, and really journaling every day for 30 days has really helped to get up close on this process, that I see what the details are and I see what the direct effects of my actions are. It's really been beneficial. I also discovered that I can't eat movie popcorn. It makes me sick and actually has caused inflammation in my body, where I had some movie popcorn and the next day I had pain in my knees. So I just keep learning every day as I continue in this process of being committed to my own growth. By day 24, I found the root to one of my, I will call it out of control or compulsive behaviors that I have wanted to change for a long time. And the root is when I say to myself, I can't, this is too hard. So anytime I say, I can't, this is too hard, then I engage in activities that actually stall any forward movement that I have on any project. For example, I'm working on doing some online courses. I'm working on organizing myself so that I can teach therapists how to use the systems that I use to help people heal. I'm working on a 30-day downloadable journal to help you understand how to do a 30-day challenge in a way that really effectively helps you identify what's getting in your way and create plans that can help you pinpoint where the problem is and come up with some alternative solutions that can help you meet your goals. So I get stuck when I think a process is overwhelming or when I can't see the steps that it takes to get there. I'm fairly techie, I'm fairly a nerdy girl, but there are still things that I just don't understand how to do in the online world. And so I was thinking about those things and started thinking, I can't, this is too hard, and that's programming that's been part of my life since I was very young. And I realized it, I recognized it, I was able to stop the behaviors that usually come with that thinking in my brain, and I was able to shift my plans and get myself organized in a way that when I can't, or this is too hard pops up for me, I know what to do to soothe myself. And so that's a big step forward for me. I'm really excited about it. Just like today I'm at home, I'm working, I'm developing some things that I need to do to get transcripts out for the podcast and to get next week's podcast ready to go and to just all of the things that I have to do behind the scenes. And I worked that way for a little bit and then, started getting an achy back and tight shoulders and started thinking about what else I could be doing that's more fun and not work. And so I just took 15 minutes out and did 15 minutes worth of yoga. And then I was able to come right back and get my recording voice on and start working on what's next on the horizon. And that process was able to help me get clear in my mind and work out the bugs. And for me, some of those bugs are, I can't, this is too hard, I'm too tired, I don't have enough time, on and on. And so I was able to shift that. And I was able, also because of my 30-day journaling and realizing what had happened, I now have this beautiful setup in my home office where I have a planning space with Post-it notes and everything set out for me so that I don't have to keep the details in my brain, and a 30-day planning calendar that has wet erase marker so I can write everything down and then swipe it off when it's done and then start over the next day. So that's really exciting because now I'm able to get focused and I'm able to avoid the inertia that happens when those thoughts come in my mind and realize, well, actually I can. I have all the steps in front of me and I can think clearly. So it really does help. The 30-day challenge journaling really does help you to develop a very clear plan. The idea is like in diagnosis. I learned this as a mental health professional, and you know this when you see your doctor. The doctor cannot create a treatment plan for you, or your therapist cannot create a treatment plan for you, unless your therapist or your doctor has a clear understanding of what the problem is. So even like when we're thinking about when a therapist thinks they have a clear understanding of what the problem is, so they tell you what they would do, that's not the thing. The thing is to get so close and in so detailed with your own processes that you can see exactly where the problem is yourself. When you see exactly where the problem is yourself, then it's easy to create a plan. It's easy to say, oh, here's the problem, here's how I get stuck, let me create something that will help me overcome that. So I'm really excited about that. I'm working on the details of my 30-day challenge course, and that's coming up if you're interested in doing that. What's going to happen for sure is that as soon as I have my free 30-day beta version of my PDF journal, I will be making that available to you for your email address, or if you're already subscribed by email, you'll get it automatically. So watch for that. Wait for the announcement that it's coming out, because that's going to happen soon. So I talked before about what happens in a 30-day challenge and how a 30-day challenge really helps you see how things are connected and where else you're stuck, and how things maybe don't work as smoothly as you want them to, and where some attention should be focused for your next 30-day challenge. So my next 30-day challenge is called my Get to Bed Challenge. Yes, get to bed, go to bed, what parents tell their kids. I get stuck in this procrastination mode when it's time to go to sleep. And I will end up, and I'm sure I'm not alone, I will end up having difficulty getting myself off the couch and moved into the bedroom, or getting into the preparation that I need to for getting ready for bed. That procrastination leads to a whole heck of other problems. So I know what they are. I don't know what they are specifically, but by the time episode 6 comes out next week, I will have already begun on my next 30-day challenge, and I'll tell you about what's happening with that at that time. Now on to my review of the second half of Dr. Kelly Brogan's book, A Mind of Your Own. Episode 3, where I talked about the first part of that book. The title of that episode is What You Don't Know About Depression. I shared with you some of the evidence for seeking wellness drug-free. I really found that that was a really scary and upsetting episode. At least it was for me. I don't know if it was for you, but it scared me and it upset me while I was doing the research. And also I got very worked up and upset, if you listened to that episode, you know, about the things I shared with you. That was difficult. And I think sometimes waking up and realizing things like that, it's like the really best medicine. And at the same time, it can cause some receding into denial or some paranoid feeling about what's going to happen next or who can I trust. And so I want to assure you that today is better. The second half of her book does talk about things you need to avoid, but she also talks about what we can do for sure to take our health back. And I think that based on the things that I talked about in episode 3, and based on how widespread this problem is of having contaminants in our environment and in our food and medications that aren't so safe, I think that what we need is a glimmer of hope to help us know that we can take things into our own hands. And I found that in the second part of Dr. Kelly Brogan's book. But before I move into that second part of the review, I need to really reiterate, and I learned this when I started seeing a functional medicine doctor, is that the natural route to healing takes time, and it requires patience, and it requires a willingness to take perhaps a longer road. I think that one of the reasons that popping a pill has become so widespread is that, first of all, they're not telling us the dangers of those things. And secondly, you can take a pill and feel better almost immediately. And then nobody talks about the long-term effects. So as an example of that, I want to tell you that yesterday I had a really bad headache. And I was suspicious that my headache was caused by the inertia that I talked about that's inspiring my next 30-day challenge. I went to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning, Saturday night. Sunday by noon, I had quite a headache. It was a headache that was bad enough that I was having difficulty in conversations. I wanted to just keep my head down. I kept putting pressure on my forehead with my hand. It was one of those kind of headaches. And people around me who love me offered ibuprofen. They offered Tylenol. They just wanted to encourage me to take something to make my headache go away. And I refused, because I've learned, as Dr. Brogan goes over in the second part of her book, is that those non-steroid anti-inflammatory medications, they promote bleeding, they increase intestinal permeability, they deplete your nutrients, they aggravate immune health, and they trigger autoimmune and inflammatory processes. So the handoff is, on one side, you get relief of pain. My headache would have gone away. But on this other hand, my long-term goal for having a healthier, stronger body, having more longevity, having more endurance, all of that would be sacrificed. And one of my loved ones said to me yesterday, well, just take it once. It's not going to hurt you once. Well, just take it once is the mentality that would lead a person to taking it again and taking it again and taking it again. So yes, I had a headache for about 6 hours yesterday, from 3 p.m. until 9 when I went to bed. And I just suspected that I needed sleep. I made sure I got all of my water in so that I knew it wasn't a dehydration headache. And I also suspected that it was sleep. I went to bed and woke up this morning and voila, no headache. So the idea is that, yes, we can pop a pill quickly. We can make things go away. But there are consequences. And I think for myself, at least, that the consequences to having an immediate pleasure, if that's long-term compromised health, it's not worth it to me. Rather, I looked at the headache as saying, well, that was my body telling me that something was off. That was my body telling me that I needed more rest. It's really not a popular way of looking at things today. But if we can stay focused on our longer-term health and be willing and able to resist even social pressure to just make the pain go away, my belief anyway is that we'll be feeling better in the long run. We'll be healthier. That said, let's get to the recommendations that Dr. Kelly Brogan makes in her book. Remember that her underlying assumption is that stress in the body, whether it's psychological stress or stress from medications or stress from things that we're eating that are harming us, leads to inflammation, and inflammation leads to depression. So she says that what we need to do is back up and teach our body that we're safe. And we do that in 3 ways. We do that by using healthy lifestyle practices. I'll talk about those a little bit today. By including healthy habits, which is what we're putting in our body, and by avoiding harmful substances. And that is what we put in and on our body and what we have in our home environments. So she starts out by talking about the healthy gut. The healthy gut has had more and more attention in the last several years. What she talks about is that probiotic pills are less helpful than a healthy diet. So we have to start with a healthy diet. But what makes it healthy and what doesn't? She says that we need a diet rich in healthy anti-inflammatory fats and proteins. And when we have anti-inflammatory fats and proteins, that leads to lower rates of depression. Also, one of the things that she said in the book that I thought was really interesting, I had started with my husband on the ketogenic diet a while back and find consistently every time I've tried to do that I don't do well on low-carb diets. And Dr. Brogan says that she finds that women don't do well on low-carb diets. So she doesn't recommend getting rid of all carbs. She does recommend using tubers and gluten-free grains. That's what helps us be healthy. But she basically says, have a grain-free, dairy-free diet that eliminates sugar and genetically modified foods. So she also at the same time really makes some warnings. It's sometimes hard to know what to eat that is the right thing to eat because there are so many wrong things to eat. So she does give some warnings about things that increase inflammation and lead to mental health symptoms. And that includes high fructose corn syrup. That's on everything. High fructose corn syrup leads to obesity and depression, and she gives those details in the book. She also says that gluten and gluten-like proteins are bad for us because they increase inflammation in the body. She says that barley, rye, and corn are very inflammatory. It's really interesting because you think of rye bread. Rye bread seems to be wholesome, but it's really inflammatory. She says that studies, so I think I've said this in another podcast episode, but it's worth saying again. The only thing between you and the garbage that your body could ingest is in your intestine, a single cell lining that is the barrier between what's in your intestine and the inside of your body. And so that single cell lining is supposed to be really tightly knit with no damage to those cells, so that your intestines can determine what is healthy and what should stay in your body and what you need to get let pass through to your bloodstream into the rest of your body, and what shouldn't, what should be sent out as waste. And there are studies that are saying that the integrity of that lining gets disrupted, we're thinking probably for everyone who eats gluten. Maybe everyone. So you think about it, even if you don't have symptoms or a diagnosis of gluten insensitivity yet, because your one cell lining might have been disrupted because of the things that you're eating, but you're not identifying any symptoms in your body that would indicate that you do have gluten sensitivity or a leaky gut, maybe it just hasn't happened yet. I don't know about you, but I want to keep that lining intact for me so that I can stay healthy. So symptoms or not, I think that the studies, the research should help us make healthier choices. She also warns against dairy. She says that there's new research that the protein called casein, C-A-S-E-I-N, in cow dairy especially, plays a role in psychiatric conditions from depression to schizophrenia. So if you're having symptoms, mental health symptoms, I wonder if it's worth it to let go of cheese and milk. You know, I have a dairy allergy that causes me to get welts on my skin, so I can't eat it. And I also have never really paid attention to how I feel emotionally when I don't eat it. But if you're having a problem with depression or anxiety, it may be worth taking a look. The next thing that she talks about is GMOs. The ingredient glyphosate that is used to create GMOs is in over 750 products that they use to process foods to make GMOs, genetically modified foods. It's known based on research that glyphosate disrupts your beneficial gut bacteria. And there's a guarantee that if you're eating GMOs, you're exposed to pesticides and herbicides. Those pesticides and herbicides are meant to kill bugs on the food that you're going to eat. If you eat GMOs, at least small amounts of those poisons, the pesticides and herbicides, end up in your body. And your gut bacteria is live bacteria, so they're susceptible to the pesticides and herbicides that are on GMO food. So that's something to think about too. She also warns about artificial sugars. She calls them the equals and splendas of the world. She said something really interesting, and that is that your body cannot digest them, and that's why they have 0 calories. Think about that. It's like, I don't know, probably if we talked about eating paper or eating plastic or eating, I don't know, some other inedible thing, we'd say, well, of course it has no calories. You're not supposed to eat it. But when something is 0 calories and it's on the grocery store shelf, we go, woohoo, yay, 0 calories, let me eat it. Like, how did we do that? We shouldn't be eating things we can't digest. The body can't digest them, and there was a 2014 study that says that artificial sugars affect healthy gut bacteria in the same way that leads to insulin resistance and diabetes. So these artificial sugars were first created to be able to help people with obesity and diabetes, right? Use artificial sugars. It won't spike your blood glucose. It won't make you fat. But the 2014 study, and I'll put the reference in the notes, shows that artificial sugars affect your healthy gut bacteria in a way that leads to insulin resistance and diabetes. So you don't necessarily have to eat the sugar, but you do need to keep your gut bacteria in balance. Equal and Splenda throws that off. The next thing she talks about is antibiotics. And another thing that blew my mind is that antibiotics, according to Dr. Brogan, have never really been adequately studied for safety. She makes reference to a website, and it's www.hormonesmatter.com. And there on that website, there is very extensive information about the awful, dangerous effects of Cipro. It's a common antibiotic. What does Cipro do? I went and saw the website and I was just shocked. So it does autonomic nervous system damage. What is autonomic nervous system? That is connected to all of the things that you don't have to think about for them to work. Things you don't want to have damaged, such as your heart rate, your digestion, your respiratory rate, salivation, perspiration, pupil dilation, urination, and sexual arousal. It also causes tooth damage, and it damages your mitochondria. So remember, mitochondria are the little energy producers inside your cells. Mitochondria get damaged with Cipro, and it also damages DNA. So it causes tendon rupture, and it damages the ability of the body to rebuild injury. It's really scary. And when I look at the website, it also talked about this, hormonesmatter.com. It also talked about brain cell damage. So Cipro causes nervousness, agitation, insomnia, anxiety, nightmares, or paranoia. And get this. So NSAIDs, which are the non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs, when the NSAIDs are added, so many times when you get sick with an illness that needs an antibiotic, the doctor will also give you this anti-inflammatory drug to go with it to help you feel better. Well, when NSAIDs are added, the anti-inflammatories increase the effect of the damage that's caused by Cipro. So that seems really scary to me. I'm sick, I go to the doctor, I think I need antibiotics. I'm going to go and get them and another medicine that helps me feel better. That will make me feel better and make the infection go away, but it'll cause long-term other damage in the body. If you really want to look at what Cipro does or the antibiotics, there's plenty of information on the web. I would recommend that you start with hormonesmatter.com. So another major area that Dr. Brogan talks about in the book is thyroid issues, because she points out that if you have a thyroid problem, you may not have a depression problem, even though it seems like you may be depressed. So she points out that thyroid issues can be caused by chemicals, by food additives, by commercial sodas, by plastics that contain BPA, by tap water, by mercury, by stress, and by gluten. And she points out a study from the European Archives of Psychiatry and Clinical Neuroscience that says that there's a strong association between autoimmune thyroiditis, that's usually Hashimoto's, with depression and or bipolar depression. Here's another thing to know. Thyroid issues are usually caused by low thyroid. Sometimes they're caused by too much thyroid. But thyroid hormone, again, supports mitochondria. Mitochondria in your cells are the little guys that create energy for you. Without that support, you don't have enough energy, and it looks like depression. So if you have a low thyroid, you also may look depressed, but it's not depression. It may be the things that you're taking that are affecting your, or doing or exposing yourself to that are affecting your thyroid function. So a few of the things that she lists are birth control pills. Birth control pills reduce thyroid levels. They also promote inflammation in the body, and they deplete critical nutrients and antioxidants. And fluoride. So fluoride in your drinking water and in your toothpaste also suppresses the thyroid. All of these can cause low thyroid, which ends up being something that you end up being medicated for, and depression. So it's really interesting, and I think important to look at those things. What Dr. Brogan says that we need to do is to eliminate certain foods right away. And here's the list. She says eliminate gluten and gluten-containing proteins, which are wheat, barley, and rye. Eliminate most forms of sugar. So that's refined sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and artificial sugars. Eliminate non-organic and GMO foods, which include corn, soy, and canola oil. And eliminate unhealthy fats, which include processed vegetable oils. And I had this aha moment. It's when we make adjustments to the way we eat, we think, oh, okay, if I go out to a restaurant, I can order it in a certain way. But if you go to a restaurant that has food that's fried in any way, like fried meat, like in a Mexican food store where I like to go, you don't know if the food is going to be fried. I'm sure that they're not going to use the top level olive oil or the top level avocado oil that would be the highest quality oils to be able to cook meat in. I'm sure that's not the case. But many of the processes for cooking meat in dinners starts with the sear in oil. So it's something to think about. It's kind of an aha moment that I had when I realized I was sitting in a restaurant getting ready to order, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. The meat's probably going to be cooked in oil. So, got to be careful and mindful. She also says to eliminate right away casein, which is the protein in dairy, more specifically milk and cheese. She also goes into detail. I can see that time is getting away from me today, but she's going into detail in what she calls the most problematic drugs that are not the psychiatric drugs. And so she talks specifically and in detail about what happens in your body when you take birth control that can lead to depression, what happens in your body when you take statin drugs, which those are the cholesterol reducing drugs, and what happens in your body that can lead to depression. She also talks about the acid reflux medications. She says don't just take a Tylenol. Don't just pop a Tylenol, which I've already talked about. And number 5 that she talks about is the non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs. So I would recommend reading that part of her book if you're really interested in knowing in detail what those medications do to your body and how they can lead you to more depression. She also has other detailed discussions on fluoride, on fragrances, flame retardants, and endocrine disrupting chemicals that are in our homes, as well as vaccines. So I've already been talking for quite a while about the things she wants to warn us about and the things that she wants to get us off of. Now let me turn to what she calls natural treatments for whole body wellness. And she starts by saying, let food be thy medicine. And she so strongly believes this that when she has new patients come to her psychiatry office, she will not see them. She will not continue with them unless they comply with her 30 days of avoiding the foods that are mentioned. So they have to be willing to follow her nutritional protocol or she won't see them again. She feels that strongly about it. And the book ends with a step-by-step 4-week plan. So if you're interested in knowing what that plan is and how she really helps people heal, then I would recommend getting the book. She also has her own website, and her website has lots of information, and you can search through and do any health topics or things that you have of concern. You can do that research for yourself, and her website is at kellybroganmd.com. So it's KELLYB, like boy, ROGANMD.com. There she has health topics such as defeat depression, the paleo brain, gut health and mood, sane motherhood, rethinking health, and drug side effects. Let me tell you what she says are the most important lessons. This was the most encouraging thing for me when I read this book, because clearly, if you're here, listen to your body, heal your life. I told you at the beginning that this book did resonate for me on so many levels. And what she says is that the most important lesson that you can learn is to listen to your body. And the other thing that was very encouraging is that as you eliminate processed addictive foods, you can start to be led to your own best way of eating. You just have to learn how to listen to your body without the addictive cravings that the foods that she recommends that you stay away from cause. So I found that to be really good and very encouraging. And actually, the truth is when you get the addictive foods out of your body, it isn't hard to follow the truth about what it is that your body is telling you you need to eat. And we're programmed like that, but then everything gets in the way. So Dr. Brogan outlines 5 rules that she says that you need to follow. So I'm going to quickly go over them here. She says, eliminate processed foods. That's refined carbs and flour. That includes allergens like gluten, soy, and corn. And in her book, there's a comprehensive list of gluten foods, gluten-containing foods. I was shocked to find that bacon is on that list. Also, eliminate sugar. And she has in her book a list of code terms for sugar. You have to know how to read labels so that you know if something has sugar in it or not. But most of the whole foods that she's recommending that you eat, and that's rule number 2, eat whole foods. They don't have labels because they don't have ingredients lists, because a whole food is a food by itself as it's grown or it comes out of the water, whatever it is. She does in her book list the fruits and vegetables that are best to have organic and the foods that are okay, fruits and vegetables, to not eat organic. But eating whole foods is fruits and vegetables, pastured animal products and wild fish, chicken and beef bone broth, pastured eggs, raw dairy, and nuts and seeds. And she says, peanuts are not nuts. They're actually beans. So nuts and seeds. Rule 3 is don't avoid or restrict natural fats. So she lists the natural fats. The omega-3 food sources of natural fats that she recommends are cold water fish, flax oil, macadamia nut oil, grass-fed meat, eggs, nuts, and seeds. Omega-9 fats that are recommended by food source are olive oil, avocado, almonds, eggs, and lard. And saturated fats, food sources, red palm oil, animal meats, ghee, dark chocolate, and coconut oil. Rule number 4 is add probiotic foods like sauerkraut, like pickles, and then supplements. Or kimchi is another one. The 5th rule is eat mindfully and without distractions. It's a really good program. I do recommend her recommendations. I think it's really amazing and out of the park. She recommends supplementation, but as an individualized process that's based on the inflammatory markers in the body and signs of autoimmunity and your serum levels of vitamins. So she does have supplement suggestions in the book, and she also recommends lab tests that you can request with your doctor so that you can investigate the link between your symptoms and inflammation and any mental health symptoms that you may have. And she gives all of those guidelines in the book. It's really thorough. It's very positive. She makes other recommendations, and I told you that I would review them here. So the other recommendations that she's given are meditation. And I was surprised to learn that meditation actually has been shown with research to reduce inflammation. She says to start with a few minutes a day, and it's okay to use guided meditation. But she says to work up to 2 20-minute sessions per day for a therapeutic effect. Dr. Brogan says that really to get true healing, we have to have a daily practice of sending our body the message that it's not being attacked, that it's not in danger, and that it's well-nourished, well-supported, and calm. And meditation and proper nutrition can help do this. There's a lot of research out there about the effects of meditation, but there is this idea that's coming out of the research. They're theorizing that the biological events that take place during meditation prevent the body from translating psychological worry into physical inflammation. And that's huge. I think that's amazing that our bodies can work that way. So if you have inflammation in your body, meditation can help heal that. That's like phenomenal to me. Other suggestions that Dr. Brogan makes in the book and talks about each one of these is deep breathing, having a daily gratitude practice, practicing biofeedback, which you can do with the help of a professional, or developing a witness consciousness. I thought that was really interesting, so let me share that with you. Here's the beginning rudimentary steps of developing a witness consciousness. So it's the difference between being stuck in your body and living the symptoms versus being aware and open and observant. It's witness conscious is what I did while I had a headache and endured it, thinking there has to be something going on and I have to listen to it. So here are the steps. Some basic steps toward developing witness consciousness. Number 1, notice and acknowledge your discomfort. Number 2, relax and release it no matter how urgent it feels. Let the energy pass through you before you attempt to fix anything. Number 3, imagine sitting up tall in a mental place where you can watch your thoughts, emotions, and behavior with a detached compassion. 4, then ground yourself. Connect to the present moment. Feel the earth under your feet. Smell the air. Imagine roots growing into the earth from your spine. Then she says this isn't an exercise done for mastery, so do it in a spirit of non-judgment. Engaging this practice is a decision that you make every time you feel disturbed inside. She says the practical rewards are incalculable, and I'll tell you that the practical rewards of developing a witness consciousness is you get this level of objectivity about your own symptoms that helps you to analyze them and look at them in a way that allows you to problem solve differently than when you're taking it in without the witness consciousness. She also suggests Kundalini yoga. I didn't know this about meditation. I've seen it has quite a lot of people who do it, and I thought it was kind of foo-foo-y and new age, but actually I'm going to implement it in my own life because I want to see the effects. I want to see how it benefits me. So after meditation, Dr. Brogan talks about sleep and how sleep is really essential to be able to ward off mental health symptoms. And I'm running out of time today, and sleep is so important that episode 6 next week is going to be on sleep. The whole episode is going to be on sleep. I'm going to review a book by Sean Stevenson called Sleep Smarter, and you'll get some really good tips and information from that book to help you understand exactly what goes into sleep and how sleep is helpful and how it actually wards off and can help you master your mental health process. But what I'll tell you is that when I have clients coming into my office and they're depressed, one of the first questions I ask is, how's your sleep? And almost always the answer is that it's terrible. So the first step that I want to take before I start actual treatment is actually helping them improve sleep. Because when you don't get enough sleep, it doesn't matter how well you think about your problems or how well you can describe them to someone. It really does slow down your process and therapy. So the final recommendation that Dr. Brogan makes about lifestyle choices is exercise. She calls it nature's antidepressant. And I've known that this has been true for a long time. When people don't exercise, they get depressed. It just happens. It follows that way. So there's a list that she gives of what exercise does for us in terms of managing depression, and it's way more than just physical, the exercise. It has more than physical benefits. So I'm just going to quickly go down this list of the things that exercise can do for you, because you probably haven't thought about it. But here's the list. Increased stamina, strength, flexibility, and coordination. Increased muscle tone and bone health. Increased blood and lymph circulation and oxygen supply to cells and tissues. Probably knew that. More restful sound sleep. Balanced hormones. Stress reduction and mood stability. Increased self-esteem and sense of well-being. Release of endorphins, brain chemicals that act as natural mood lifters and pain relievers. Decreased food cravings. Decreased blood sugar levels and risk for diabetes. Ideal weight distribution and maintenance. Increased brain health, sharper memory, and lower risk for dementia. Increased heart health and lower risk for cardiovascular disease. decreased inflammation and risk for age-related disease, including cancer, and increased energy and productivity. So exercise is another thing that helps ward off depression. Finally, before she gets into her program in the book, she has a chapter on detoxing your environment. And I found that was a little bit overwhelming, and it can be. She spoke to that, and really, because it's an overwhelming process, you want to take it slowly and do a little at a time. But she addresses toxins in household goods, cleaning supplies, plastic, clothing, water sources, cosmetics, toiletries, and food and water storage. Pretty much now, between episode 3 and today, I have recapped the things that I have found the most helpful and important from Dr. Kelly Brogan's book, A Mind of Your Own. It really opened my eyes as a clinician, treating people who come to me asking for help, as a human being, and more particularly as a woman. It really made me think differently about my own well-being and the things that I would present to my clients in terms of asking them to do the research and be proactive about finding health answers that work for them. But this is one of the books on my recommended reading list. And if you'd like to read it, I would request that you go to www.listentoyourbodyhealyourlife.com and go to the resources page, scroll down to episode 5, and click on the image of the book so that you can buy it and support me as an Amazon affiliate and help to strengthen this podcast show so that I could keep it going. So once again, thank you so much for listening. I'm Tamara Bess, and I want to encourage and empower you to listen to your body so you can heal your life.